broadcasting here. We grab the stream and we take this link and we see if we actually have sound. Yep, we do. So that's good. Now, why was that blank? I want to make sure we can see the background here. Okay. Why is it not showing the Chrome background? I just want to make sure that, oh yeah, okay. No, we're good. We're good. All right. So that's good. And I'll start recording locally as well, just in case we lose it. Although once it was the other way around, I lost it locally and I had to download it from YouTube to get it. I was glad that I streamed it. But anyway, okay, yeah. So we're up. The only other thing I want to do is I want to go into Discord and tell everybody in chat. I'll just be like, everyone. Oops. Hold on. Yeah, everyone. I've got Sam from Early Morning Dev YouTube channel live on stream. Please jump in if you're around. Okay, we'll do it that way. Notify all 1,500 or however many people. How many people do I have now in here? Let me see. Server settings. You got to go down to members to find out. Oh yeah, like 1497. Just almost 1,500. Yeah.
Like basically nearly the entire community for PocketBased, I would say.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah. I've had a few people actually jump in and say hi and stuff. So the hardest part for me is I have to remember to check the chat because it doesn't notify me. And so I'll just be coding or doing whatever, being stupid, and somebody's trying to say something. Yeah, Gustavo. Hey, from your friend Orloff. Hey, Gustavo, how you doing? Good to see you, man. Yeah, early morning supporter here. Okay, yeah, so one of my Discord guys, there's Nick. How dare you pull me away from Twitter to watch this? Yeah, Nick, have you... Okay, well, let's do a little intro here first. So I've got Sam from Early Morning Dev. He's got a really awesome YouTube channel. It's a young channel, growing by leaps and bounds, though, man. I mean, I think you picked up like 200 subscribers even just in the last month or so, right?
Yeah, it's growing, which is really cool. I think it shows that like PocketBased, I guess, is growing as well because more people have got interests in my vids, so I'm loving it.
Are you kind of like heading more toward PocketBased with that channel?
Yeah, I would say so. Like the thing for me is I saw that there wasn't really much I guess content for PocketBased out there, and there wasn't a lot of content creators doing stuff. So I was like, there's obviously like an opportunity here. So I just started talking about what I knew. Like I don't know everything. Like I think probably you're way more advanced in terms of your builds and stuff like that than I am. But like I feel like being able to talk about PocketBased is something that I enjoy.
Yeah, I get torn, man, about like, I mean, I'm pretty deep into PocketBased at this point, but you know, every once in a while, like I'm having one of those days today. Actually, this circles back into what I was going to ask Nick and ask you too, because Nick was saying he was over on X and now he's watching this instead. But have you guys tried Grok 3?
Grok 3. I saw the Fireship IO vid for it, and I was like, okay, this is pretty cool, but I haven't tried it yet. Is it good?
It's ridiculous. Yes, it's so good. I'm having a little existential crisis today because I've been talking to Grok all morning, and hey Andrew, how you doing? Yeah, Nick, you've tried it. Nick, Grok 3's fantastic, Nick says. Yeah, I was having this long conversation today, kind of a strategic one about like, what am I doing? I want to make apps. I want to make like real-time games with, things like that. And it ties into PocketBased and Pocket Host. But I really want to break out of this, like just making dev tools for other devs. There's nothing wrong with that. But, I don't know, for me to feel like I won the world, or won life, I want to make an app that reaches end users. I got to get out of the dev circle thing is how I feel. So I was talking to Grok about all that today, and Grok's got me thinking. But yeah, you gotta go check it out, man. It's worth it.
Are you doing like a lot of like brainstorming for your app ideas with AI? Because like I know you've been doing like a lot of work on Kingdom as part of PocketBased, but like have you been sort of looking at sort of other app ideas or?
Yeah. So okay. So most of the AI collaboration I do is in Cursor. Have you checked out that IDE?
Yeah, I'm using that at the moment.
You're using, okay, yeah, but I don't think they have a Grok connection in there yet. But I bet Grok is better. I bet like Grok might actually be better than Claude. I don't know that for sure. Don't quote me on it. But yeah, I don't think Grok is an option in Cursor yet. But Cursor's Grok's reasoning ability was so good that it would really impress me. Nick says, I got paid a big amount up front to experiment with LLMs as a senior level dev to see how well it works. TOF, building apps quickly. TOF, I can't parse that, Nick, but anyway, for building app, probably FOR backwards, FOR backwards, and then the R is a T. So you did a typo and a reversal on that word. That's impressive, Nick. Okay, yeah. So it went well for building apps quickly. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think right now you'd have to copy and paste stuff back and forth between Grok and your code, and Cursor is just so much more convenient than that. So I don't think I'm going to switch to Grok for coding yet. But as far as just like discussing things, it's got a huge context window as far as I can tell. Like, I had this whole conversation with it this morning. It told me that I had run out of, my like free tier quota. And that's when I found out that you can buy Grok separately on grok.com or something like that, or you can subscribe to it as part of X. And if you subscribe to it as part of X, you get like some other premium features exclusive to X. So I signed up there, but then I realized these two accounts are different, even though I'm logged in with my X account on grok.com and X. The chat histories are not there. They're completely separate. So I don't know how they're doing it, but right now those accounts are separate. So anyway, I had this long, valuable conversation on the free one that I was using the app, and I was like, oh man, now I got to like somehow redo all of that because I signed up through X. So I just literally copied and pasted the whole thing, our whole conversation back and forth. And I was like, hey, check this out. This is what we were talking about. I want to keep going. And it tore it up. And then it was like right there with me again. And it had all the background information and everything, including its own suggestions. So like I was able to transfer that whole context window over to a new session, and it worked. And I don't think that would work on GPT. So Grok's pretty impressive.
It's got a small context window, GPT. I feel like also like Gemini tends to like lose half of the code in the conversation. Like Gemini's got a massive context window. I think it's like 1 million tokens, but it's lossy. So like you'll be typing, like you might put in your whole code base and then, give me information on this part of the code. And then it will just like, I don't really understand what you're asking. It's like, come on, man. But yeah, I've definitely got to check that out. I'm using in Cursor at the moment. I'm using the Gemini Pro experimental one, which is just free. Like the dev is just free, so like the dev API is free for that. So I'm loving it.
Yeah, yeah. AI has been like such a win for for coding. It's like collaborating with a very like cooperative senior dev, and those guys are hard to find. Most of the time, senior devs are grumpy and cynical, and so we know one. He makes PocketBased.
Yeah.
um, yeah,
It's actually
yeah.
funny. I reached out to Ghani this week, and I didn't even know he was from Bulgaria. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I thought
So
he was Indian.
it does. Yeah, Ghani does sound Indian. No, I knew he was
Yeah.
from Bulgaria, and okay. So here's what I think is going on. I think Ghani's very talented. I think that he is. I think he has a disagreeable personality trait, which is good for like his code is very clean, very organized. He accepts very few pull requests or people's suggestions, and so there is a strength to that kind of like disagreeable personality trait. And I think when you combine that with, I'm not sure that he's a native English speaker, so the way he phrases things are, to a native English speaker like me, if another native speaker spoke to me that way, they would mean offense, right? I don't know if I would take offense, but they would. I think that's how that's what they would be trying to express. I don't know that he means it that way, but yeah, I've had a couple other like not run-ins, but just recently, just things where it was just like, whoa, okay, Ghani, I'll be over here doing my own thing. Sorry to trouble you. And one of them turned out to be like, I don't know if it was like if you would call it a bug in PocketBased, but it was it had to do with importing modules in the JSVM, and there's actually a bug in the module resolution code in Goja Node.js, and then there was sort of an artifact where he wasn't providing a file name for various technical reasons. So when he was calling into Goja, it didn't have a file name, so it was not able to resolve modules correctly. And I'm still trying to get like the two of them to kind of get together and fix it. But he did post a fix like very quickly. So I think he's a very exacting individual, and I do think there may be a language barrier, but also because he's from Bulgaria, there might just be kind of a cultural thing too of just being a straight talker and not, maybe that's just kind of like the communication style over there is just to say exactly what you mean and what you think, and maybe it's not offensive to do that. I don't know.
I've never met anyone from Bulgaria, so I couldn't really say. But like my wife, she's Brazilian, and over there it's quite direct as well in certain things. Like, and I imagine that it would be kind of like that for Bulgaria and for the East. Like I've got my friend who's Russian. He's quite direct as well, and just says what he thinks. And I think that that's probably maybe some of the aggression that is perceived, like in some of the discussion threads. But I don't think it's aggression. I think it's just like statement of fact. And like he was when I reached out to him, he was very curt with me, like not interested, thanks. But like I kind of get it. It's just like, yeah, you know what? Just he's based. He knows what he's doing. And yeah, like I can't really begrudge him for that. But I think where I saw the most sort of, I guess, heat from Ghani was in that the server-side rendering thread. Did you read through that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the thing is like some of his communication comes across as like very annoyed that people are trying to use his shit. It's funny.
Yeah.
Daniel in the chat says his other Bulgarian friends are also direct with language. So yeah, I mean, maybe it is like partly a cultural thing, partly a language thing. I don't know, but you know, my experience with Ghani has been that his first response is like very terse and like, wow, that's you know, like he was talking to somebody about Pocket Pages, and he said he doesn't recommend it because it's hacky. And I read that and I was like, did he really mean to like say that my code is hacky? Because that would be, to me, that would be like an offensive statement, you know?
Words.
Right. And I felt very defensive, like wait a minute, if you're finding a hacky part in there, that's because of, you know, some underlying issue, because I don't write hacky code just to do it. Well, sometimes I do, but anyway, so, you know, I kind of asked him like, what does that mean, hacky? And then he like went back and like revised the statement and, you know, and like edited the comment in GitHub to clarify that he meant unusual and unconventional. He didn't mean poor quality necessarily.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, well, yeah, it is unusual and unconventional because the JSVM is unusual and unconventional, and I've had to like contort myself to make certain things run in the JSVM. And so then I started digging into his little comment saying my shit was hacky, sent me down like this 3-day journey of like, yeah, why did I write it this way? Why am I shipping PocketBased as this giant like web bundle of code instead of, you know, using like npm dependencies? Why? Yeah, because I couldn't remember back. Why did I do that? And so I started looking into it, and that's how I found like, oh yeah, it's because these module resolution problems are happening, and I can't ship PocketBased as an npm package because as soon as it tries to pull in other packages, things break. So I started digging around in that, and I think I did like legitimately find, again, I don't want to say it's like a bug necessarily, but there is an area where the Node.js module resolution code in the code in Goja that's supposed to mimic the Node.js module resolution algorithm, it actually does have some gaps in it. It's not a full implementation, and so there are some cases where Node.js will resolve the module fine, but Goja won't. And it's not because the module won't run in Goja, it's just because the module resolution algorithm isn't finding it to load it. So I'm trying to fix those bugs.
How does that work?
Well, so Node's module resolution algorithm will follow symlinks. And that's important if you're using a package manager like PNPM, because PNPM maintains its own sort of like private structure of all of the node modules, and then it makes symlinks to everywhere that those modules are supposed to be found by other packages. So the way it organizes node modules is very symlink heavy, and Node.js will work fine with that. It'll follow symlinks and resolve things appropriately, but the Goja implementation does not follow symlinks. And so that will lead to cases where it searches up the symlink chain all the way up to the root, and it doesn't find certain modules because they're not symlinked there. They are symlinked where the actual hard-linked module resides. That's how PNPM manages it. That's how Bun manages it. So if you're working in like a mono repo, you run into these symlink issues where Goja just doesn't know how to follow symlinks and load the modules. So I think it is like an actual shortcoming, or maybe like implementation difference between how Node does it and how Goja Node does it. And since Goja Node is trying to mimic Node, I think there's something to fix there. So once that's fixed, then I'll be able to ship Pocket Pages, the next version of Pocket Pages, which will be not hacky, gauny. It'll be slimmed down and very efficient, and it'll use package managers to pull in packages instead, in this whole like plugin system, so that you don't have to pull in pieces that you don't want. And then I think he'll be as happy as he can be with it, which still won't be happy enough, because ultimately it's still JS running in Goja, and I think he's not about building an application that way. He's a Golang guy, and he wants to build like a compiled solution, and I'm just not going to do that. So I think we'll sort of always be like a little bit on different sides of things, but I do think there are a lot of web devs out there who appreciate the JavaScript engine.
Yeah, why would you say that you're not on the compiled solution bandwagon? Like, what's the problem for you?
I like a tighter development cycle. I like to be able to iterate quickly on a live server, and when you have to recompile and ship binaries around, it just becomes too cumbersome. Go is fine for local development, and I mean, I'm using Go like I'm sort of working on this new version of PocketBased that can be global, distributed, everything, and that's all Golang, pure Golang. I don't have any Node in there at all, and I develop it locally, and I have this thing that like detects if a file changes, and it rebuilds the Go binary, so it's almost not noticeable when I'm developing locally. But when I have to deploy that thing and actually check to see if it works, then I have to go through the whole fly.io deployment cycle, where it like builds this Docker container and then deploys the Docker container to all 40 instances that I have running out on, fly. And it's just like a much longer dev cycle compared to being able to SSH into a server and make some live edits and see it work in the production environment. And that's how Pocket Host got so far so quickly. I still jump in there and make live edits on Pocket Host when I need to. So there comes a point where like having a more structured change management approach does seem good, but for a solo developer, I don't think it makes much sense to me. But talk to other people like Brian, who's made his GuemisMarket.com. I think it's called GuemisMarket. Let me find it here. GuemisMarket.com. Yeah, this guy, he was on the stream, and this is all Pocket Pages built stuff here. But he's got a whole continuous integration stack. I got to get him back on to talk about his process, because it's much more tool heavy than mine. So, everybody's got different ways of going about development, and I don't really have judgments for other people. I know for me, I get really impatient when there are too many tools in the way. So, yeah. But this stream is supposed to be about you, man. I want to know what's going on.
I've gone into my interviewer mode. I don't know. I find that very interesting, because I'm interested in the ways that people build. Because I know I've got my own process for building apps. Like at the moment, like I'm all in on PocketBased. Like PocketBased is everything that I'm building with at the moment. But interestingly enough, I did a video on Superbase versus PocketBased yesterday, and I jumped back into Superbase after like such a long time, and I just found that Superbase was so good. Like, and I was shocked. I was like, wow, like it's come so far since I started using it, because I ditched Superbase for PocketBased probably 4 years back when I started doing like proper self-hosted stuff. and I never looked back. Actually, I don't think it was 4 years back. It was maybe like 2 years back. But I never looked back because I just started loving to build self-hosted, and I loved learning about the process, about how you can build like a back end, and I tried building out a back end myself, like, but it took me ages. Like, I rolled my own auth. And I think that's why I started looking for like backend as a service solutions to begin with. But yeah, it surprised me that Superbase is still so good. And then it got me thinking, like, well, why am I still building with PocketBased when we've got something like Superbase? And then I think the thing for me, and this is something I discussed with you, is like, we get this sovereignty, and we get this I suppose the ability to delve into the weeds and go into like how is actually all of this working, while still getting the ability to build and iterate really quickly on products, like, which is something I want to do. Like, I don't develop for the sake of developing. I develop for the sake of building things, which it sounds like I think you're sort of on a similar train to myself. Like, you're wanting to build product and build apps, and I mean,
Yeah.
that's the whole point of it, right? And so I'm very much like, I'm thinking the same way as you, in terms of the reason why I like building with JSVM on PocketBase is because I love the quick development cycle. And I think
Yeah.
PocketBase is the quickest self-hosted development cycle that you can get, because you've got so much done for you already.
Now you said quickest self-hosted. So what would be the quickest hosted?
I I mean, I haven't I haven't had as much experience recently with looking at other solutions other than Superbase, which I did for that comparison video because I saw some article on Reddit, and I've seen a lot of people asking for that. So I was like, oh, all right, I'll jump back into it, see how it is. I wasn't surprised that self-hosted still terrible with Superbase. It's just not something that they want to do. Um,
Yeah. Have you done?
but I think, yes, sir.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, but I think that in terms of the solutions that I would say are comparable to Pocket Base, there isn't that many that I've heard of. Like, I've heard of, I think Payload and Directus are some that have been brought up to me. I looked at Appright ages ago, but Appright looked really, really heavy. Like, it looked like a big boy, a chunky boy in comparison to Pocket Base. But I mean, Superbase is still good. The thing is Postgres for me, like, Postgres is like that next level database, because you've just got so much ability to extend on Postgres. Like, things which are really difficult to do in SQLite, or they just haven't been done yet, are things like GeoJSON. Um, uh, I know that there are vector DB extensions out there for SQLite, and with libSQL, I've seen that for Terso at least, they built-in vectors, but it's still not directly supported on SQLite. It's supported on
Yeah.
libSQL, which is like the extension. So those are the things which I feel like in Postgres, it's like, well, this is easier. It's very much. I feel it's a very much more developer friendly. I guess for a web developer, I should say. I wouldn't say more developer friendly than SQLite. I love SQLite, but definitely for a web developer, just to get up and running functions and things like that, I much preferred my workflow, at least with Superbase.
Have you checked out Convex?
You mentioned Convex to me, I think last time I spoke with you, and I saw it. I haven't taken a proper look into it, but I jumped on their page. What's good
I w-
about Convex?
I would love to see you do a deep dive of Convex on your channel because,
Okay.
first of all, it's worth it, but also they just dropped a self-hosted version. If you go to their blog, self-hosting with Convex right here, boom. So they have committed as a company to maintain a self-hosted version of Convex, because I think a lot of people are in that same boat of like, well, I don't want to, get tied to some company that might go out of business or something like that. Convex has always been open source, but now they maintain a self-hosted version, so you can deploy it on fly. You can use your own database underneath if you want to, managed Postgres if you want to. Looks like you can deploy your front end on Netlify and Vercel. That's fine. So anyway, they have a self-hosting option now that I haven't really looked into it too much because it just hit a couple days ago. But I would love to see you do a deep dive on Convex. I'm going to take another look at it now that they have a self-hosted option, because their real-time capabilities are incredible. Like I think it blows PocketBased away, actually.
Really?
Oh yeah. They've got a globally distributed real-time system under the hood.
Damn.
And for you to like host all that yourself would be a pretty tall order. But as far as them as a platform, like backend as a service, I like the option of, okay, I'll sign up with you. I'll use your hosted version of this, and if something happens to the company or it takes a weird turn or whatever, I know that I can just go self-host if I want to, as a worst case scenario, because I mean, you're committed to whatever backend you choose, and at least this way, like you're no worse off than, I mean, same if you tried to like host PocketBased yourself, you can host Convex the same way. And when I say you're no worse off, I mean, there are still a lot of considerations to a production hosting environment. And I mean, believe me, I know, but, at least they have the open source self-hosted option that's actually maintained, which is like, last time I checked Supabase, they were saying like, yeah, it's open source, like good luck. But
that's pretty much it. Battery's not included. Go figure it out.
Right. And Convex is going a little farther to just to ease that objection for users. I don't even think a lot of users are necessarily going to want to self-host. They just want to know that it's possible before they commit to the platform. So I would love to see you do a deep dive on Convex.
Okay, I'll check it out. I noticed that they've got a couple of databases in the background. They got Postgres, and then they've got MySQL. At least those Rust crates are in there. Do you know what they're using under the hood? Like which of those? Like obviously they're using both, but like which is for which? And why do they have two databases in there?
Convex?
Yeah. So I just checked the Convex backend crates.
Where do you see that?
If you go to the GitHub. To the get Convex backend and then crates.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So what is Convex in? It's like Rust and TypeScript, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. So they've got. What are you looking inside database? Is that where you are?
I was just looking at the crates that it's got for the backend in general, and then it's got. Like,
I see MySQL. Yeah. SQLite. Postgres is there too. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they're using all of this stuff, or if they're using all of it. Like maybe these are like options, right? Like if you want to use MySQL as your backing store for Convex, you can, or you can use Postgres, or maybe you can use SQLite.
That's cool.
I don't know if that's true. I'm guessing. But okay. So self-hosting. If you choose to self-host, we recommend following the self-hosting guide. If you're building from source, okay. Battle tested mostly on Linux and Mac. Self-hosted builds contain a beacon to help convex improve the product. That's fine. Yeah, I think it's an interesting product, man. And these guys also have a podcast. Theirs is called Data Based. Mine's Pocket Based, and theirs is Data Based. And they have some interesting conversations. They seem like pretty bright guys. Heading up that company, and so if you have time, that's a good deep dive. I had a question for you. Did you say you lived in Perth? Is that where you are?
Yeah, Perth.
Perth. Okay, let's see. I'm zooming in on it here. See what's going on in Perth. Oh, it looks big. Is this a big city? Seems like a big city.
It's big as in spread out, not big as in like tons of people. But fun fact about my city, it's like, I think it is the most isolated city in the world. Like, there's just not many big cities around us, like for thousands of kilometers. Because Australia is so big, right? So sort of just like we're like a little island of people just ages away from anything.
Yeah. Well, I see you have some towers there. Like you've got like some kind of industry and economy going on.
Yeah, we're basically mining. Like that's just the thing which happens. Like if you come to Perth, you're probably a miner and you're probably doing FIFO, which basically means fly in, fly out. So what a lot of people do is they'll do 2 weeks up in the mines where they just get hot and sweaty, go underground, just work 14 hours a day, and then they'll come back to Perth and then just like chill out for 2 weeks. So that's typical, like 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. I got a lot of friends who do that.
Oh, that's interesting. And have you always lived there?
Yeah, so I mean, my family originally came from the eastern states, which I think a lot of people came across from there. So the eastern states is like New South Wales, which is where Sydney is, and Victoria, which is where Melbourne is. But yeah, no, always been here. Our cities, I love Perth. Like I feel like it's one of those cities where no matter what city I go to, and I've done like a lot of traveling. Like I solo traveled to Thailand, solo traveled to Malaysia, solo traveled to Brazil. Like every time I come back to Perth, I just it's my home, man.
Yeah, it feels like home. Yeah.
Do you feel that same way about like you're in Reno, right?
Yep. I don't feel that way about Reno. I do like Reno, but it's not home. It's hard for me to find a place that really gives me a sense of home. But if I had to pick one place in the world, I would say it's let me show it on the map here. It's called Santa Barbara, California. So Santa Barbara is right on the coast of California. It's about an hour and a half north of Los Angeles and Malibu and all that kind of stuff. And I lived here for about 10 years. And every time I go back there, it's like, man, this is the one place that feels like I could die here, you know? So beautiful. Yeah, it's got really cool beaches and just a lot of character and everything. The town was destroyed in some big earthquake, I think I want to say in the 1800s or maybe early 1900s. And so when they rebuilt it with architectural standards and building codes in mind and things like that. So it's just a super chill place to live. It's very expensive. It's more expensive than, I think it might be the most expensive place in America to live, because I think it even beats New York. But what that means is everybody who's there really wants to be there. And that makes such a difference. You know, when you live in Santa Barbara, you ask people, hey, why are you here? And the answer is almost always, oh, because I want to be. When I walk around here in Reno and I ask people, why are you here? It's usually a long story that starts with a deep breath, and it's got something to do with I moved here for a job I no longer have or a relationship I'm no longer in, and now I'm just here in Reno. So it's a much more of like a stuck feeling.
What a miserable place.
Yeah, yeah. There's much more of a stuck feeling here in Reno, and not everybody, but that's the most common story of like, why are you here? So
Yeah.
I think if you can live in a place where people actually want to be there, it makes a huge difference in terms of, quality of life and stuff like that. So that's why I was just curious. I had never really learned much about Perth, and so I wanted to ask you.
I think on that, like Perth, I think everyone who is in Perth definitely wants to be here. Like I was talking with a guy last night who his dream was to come to Australia and to live in Australia. So his dad was Indian, and he was from the south in Hyderabad, and some missionaries came out to the south, and they were Australian, and he was like, I got to get myself to Australia. And so he spent his whole life working in, like, I think he did some like mining jobs in Oman, which is like, I'm pretty sure it's somewhere in the Middle East, like, and he just worked and worked and worked and brought the whole family across into Australia. And I just think
Wow.
that that's like and it's like that for a lot of people who are here in Australia. Like the people who come here, like they work really hard to get here. So when they arrive, they're like, I'm in paradise. And then they go back to like, India or to Malaysia or like to these, I guess, developing countries. And they're like, this is just a different world. Like, because
Yeah.
there's so much wealth in Australia. I'd imagine it's a similar sort of thing if there's immigrants coming to America, or at least like that's what you hear, like when you're watching videos about America, as we do in Australia, you know.
Yeah. Immigrants, not anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, not anymore.
The party's
Don't
over.
mention the war. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you basically you grew up in Perth. You like it there. A lot of people work really hard to get to Australia. Yeah, I've never been there. It's on my bucket list somewhere.
Yeah.
I'll go check it out. I'm curious, just to shift gears here a little bit. I'm curious. So let's talk about your YouTube channel. I'm fascinated by YouTube channels and creators and things like that right now, and I'm curious what got you started and why you decided to make a channel.
Yeah, it's complicated because I don't really know my own feelings on why I actually did this. I think the thing for me is I got into developing with PocketBase, and I enjoyed learning about sort of the process of extending PocketBase and building SaaS with PocketBase, and I wanted to create content around that, but also around my stories as a developer, because I started sort of working with larger companies, and I thought maybe that maybe I'm not the best developer, but I can at least provide some value to other people who are wanting to become developers. And I had friends who they were wanting to get into development, and so I was like, well, I mean, I might just make content so that I can show my friends or refer them to my vids to maybe sort of get started or have an edge. And then I guess where things sort of took off, because I only started the channel last year, was when I I saw that there was a lot of hype on Twitter for a creator, Mark Liu. And Mark Liu, he created a boilerplate called Shipfast, and Shipfast was a boilerplate that got him on Product Hunt. He got to #1. He became like most valuable creator and all the rest of it. And I saw his success in that area, and I was like, well, maybe I can share, because I'm already building in PocketBased. Maybe I can go and build my own boilerplate for PocketBased around server-side rendering, and that's where I came up with FastPocket, because I saw his success because I think Shipfast builds for maybe it builds for Superbase, or maybe he's got some self-hosted option, but I didn't see many self-hosted sort of boilerplates. So I was like, I'm going to go hard and see if I can build content that aligns with what I'm trying to do with my boilerplate. So I started building more Pocket-based content to sort of feed back and into the boilerplate. You know, if people found value in sort of the stuff I was doing, maybe they'd buy the boilerplate. But I think sort of now I'm less concerned with the boilerplate, more just concerned with building like good videos, actual videos that I enjoy. Like I checked out Tori, I gave my opinions on Next.js and sort of why I think the JavaScript ecosystem and also developers in general are pretty tired of React. What are some alternatives? Like, I think after having you on my channel, it got me thinking about sort of different technologies as well, like Alpine and HTMX particularly, and sort of influenced me to think, well, how am I gonna build going forward? And I think right now I'm using it as an outlet for me to explore technologies and share my learnings on projects that I'm building. So a lot of my opinions on Next.js have been around building a project with a friend called Petsmates, which is it's an Australian site which we're building. I don't think it's on Google yet, but it's basically a site for selling pets, and we built it entirely in Next.js. But
this one right here, petmat.com.au.
Nah, it's not. It's not on Google yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is it live?
But nah, it's not live.
Okay.
But it will be. It will be. I'll let you know. But yeah, just so much trouble fighting against the app router in Next.js, and sort of like after building with that for about a couple of months, I just sort of got really I guess fed up with, like, I got everything working, and I figured out the documentation and worked my way through Next.js, but it's so frustrating to build with Next.js, and like it got me starting to think about alternatives. So I started checking out Astro and started sort of migrating away from Next.js, because it's just, I don't know, like, have you had much experience with Next.js?
Yeah, I've used Next, I've used Astro, I've used just Create React App, Svelte Kit. Yeah, I mean, they're all kind of, it's funny because to me, they're all moving closer and closer to what PHP already was. You know, like file-based routing, server-side rendering. It's like, okay, yeah, we're back, but now we're doing it in JavaScript instead.
Yeah, full circle.
Yeah, some of the most recent comments, like Next's most recent release, people are saying like, oh man, this is like getting closer and closer to PHP with every release. So Yeah. All right. So you kind of, I'm hearing you say you started the channel as kind of a like a personal journey type of channel, just as a way to chronicle your journey and share it with friends. And you had some interest in PocketBase, which has then blossomed into interests in other technologies as well. And it
Yeah.
seems like some of them are I mean, people seem interested. I was just looking at your channel here, and like, looks like your top video is about PocketBase 23.
Yeah.
Your top three are all PocketBase, actually. Interesting.
You told me last time, you said you should just, if it were me, I'd do an all PocketBased channel. And like, I would love to, but I think the thing for me is I'm I'd never want to tie myself to a technology. I love PocketBase, and I'm never going to say anything um unwarranted about it, but there are other technologies out there, and I feel like most of what I was looking for when I was starting a channel, or when I was starting to learn, was how do I develop an app. I didn't care about the tech. That came later, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
um,
I'm right there with you, and I have that. Like, I have this whole thing going on in my head about like, well, I started this channel named PocketBased, but
yeah,
I'm not really, I'm not really like that, married to PocketBase. It happens to be right now, but that could change.
yeah, so you
Yeah.
could just be based.
Yeah, based. I just have to rename it to, to based. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But
Yeah,
right, making apps, I mean that is what I'm really about, and I am fine with whatever gets me there most efficiently.
yeah. I think the other thing as well is like, um I love Pocket Base for what it does for me as a developer, and I think that it's the same way for all technologies. Like, we just have to think of it like that, um, because ultimately Pocket Base will be replaced by something else in the future. Like like we're seeing with like PHP. Like, PHP was unpopular, then it was, uh, uh, and then it wasn't, and then like there's just these swings and roundabouts which come about with the tech.
Yeah, yeah. Brian's in the chat. He's the one from that Guemes market that I was telling you about. He was on stream a while ago, and he's coming back again to talk to us more. But he suggests for Fast Pocket that if it was SvelteKit based, that might
Yeah,
pique some curiosity.
I think that I've got to revamp it, because it is Next.js, and I have climbed the mountain of Next.js app router to get it working. Like, I know Garni says don't use PocketBase for SSR, but I didn't listen.
Yeah.
I had to do it. I had to do it. And that's, I think, where I've left Fast Pocket. But I think that going forward, I am looking really for the next technology to move to, whether that's HTMX or Alpine, or I don't know if there's something in PHP. Like, I'm not saying what I'm gonna do yet, but I know that Fast Pocket needs something else. I think the thing for Svelte, um, and this is my personal opinion on Svelte, it's probably going to be really unpopular because I know a lot of people use Pocket Base with Svelte, but I don't like the fact that Svelte seems to be going in the same way as React. Like, I saw the Svelte 5 changes with, like, they're bringing in effect. Like, use effect is the worst. It's the worst thing which has ever happened with React, and I don't understand why they're going that way as well with Svelte. So that's my hot take on Svelte. I love Svelte, but I don't know whether going down that route's gonna be a good idea. And I worry about it. I want to find a technology that's making tech building simple. which is not what I see with React or the React team or any React-like frameworks.
Yeah, I get what you mean, and I think that other people have kind of the same sentiment of like, well, I came to Svelte because I didn't like React, and now here we are back in React with a different name.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's not great because I think the effect pattern is not a good pattern. It's the direct opposite of being simple, because you're instead of looking at the code and being able to understand exactly where all your dependencies lie, and then being implicit or explicit within the code. It's like, oh, this code's executing implicitly whenever the component renders. It's like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
And then
That's
whenever
hard.
you're debugging stuff, why is this not working? Oh, it's an effect, of course. Like, but
Mm-hmm.
that happens so often. It's just like, this is ridiculous. I don't know what's going on in my own code, and it's not obvious to me when looking at my code what's going on. Which, yeah, I mean, I'm frustrated, but there's nothing else which I've seen or which I've explored properly where I can say, this is better. So, yeah.
Well, in terms of front end stuff, I learned about a couple that kind of piqued my curiosity. You know about HTMX already. You know about Alpine.js already. Do you know about Van.js?
Yeah, so Van.js was actually one of my first videos. I actually deleted it later on because it wasn't very good. But I really enjoyed playing around with Van. I think the thing for me was around server side. It wasn't quite cooked when I last looked at it.
Yeah. And I don't know either. I looked at it a long time ago too. One of the Pocket Host users is using Van.js for his front end, so it's sort of like on my list somewhere to go check out. And then this one, HTMZ, it's 166 bytes of magic. That's all it is. It's 166 bytes.
Wow.
This kind of little iframe thing, but this one would be like interesting to check out too, just in terms of like if you're looking for really, really slim front end tooling. That's where things seem to be concentrated. We have a couple comments in the chat here. DSDMG. I don't even know how to pronounce that, but anyway, he says, "Hey Sammy and crew, love PocketBased and use it for small projects, but I'm leaning on switching over to Laravel as it seems more robust and straightforward to app building." So this is another perfect example of what we were talking about. People just want to build apps. The technology is secondary, right? I'll let you talk about Laravel if you've visited it recently, but I will say I did a lot of Laravel development in years past, and it's a great framework. Nothing at all about it that I would complain about, other than if you're not a fan of PHP, maybe you wouldn't like Laravel. But I mean, I can only imagine it's gotten better. Have you looked at it lately, Sam?
No, I haven't. The last sort of endeavor into PHP was with building custom WordPress plugins and themes and things like that for me.
Yeah.
My concern with building in Laravel is that we're in this stage where JavaScript is so important to the browser experience, even now. And I feel like going to PHP is not. I feel like it's not going with the flow of what the browser experience is demanding. Like that's I feel like choosing PHP is choosing server side and cutting you off from I guess the ability to have just one language for an entire code base, because eventually, even if you're using PHP, you're still going to need to use JavaScript. But I could be wrong. I haven't checked out Laravel, and maybe Laravel's got some novel way of solving that. But that's the reason why I prefer to build in JavaScript in general. Like, and also that process of iteration, like you said, though PHP's process of iteration is pretty similar.
Yeah. So I think I'm hearing you say that when you need to switch languages between the front end and back end, there's a little bit of cognitive impedance there, where you have to know two languages, and that's just seems unnecessary when you can just build your back end in JavaScript. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I feel like it should just all be one, really. Like, I think that there's it's difficult, because sort of as I'm sort of getting more experience as a developer myself, I feel like it's not that hard to learn another language. Like, it's all the same, really. But I feel like if you're trying to get other people, explain a code base to another person, um, we're using Laravel for this, but we're also using,
Yeah.
Alpine JS for some client side stuff, and da 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 da. Like, the explanation for how the code base is becomes much larger, and it's just another overhead. It's just yet another thing on the list of a million things that you need to think of when building an app, or getting people on to even look at your code base. So it's just like,
Yeah.
that's what I think.
Well, and I would level that same critique against some of the front end JavaScript frameworks, which really are more like their own domain specific language. Like, even if you know HTML and JavaScript, you're really no closer to building an app in some of these frameworks. And nice as Alpine is, it's a little bit that way, where you have to learn the Alpine quirks that don't show up in normal HTML in order to use it. So there's a bit of a learning curve there too, and of course, like Svelte and React, you're completely out of HTML for those. But that's why some people are saying HTMX and HTMZ are preferable, because then you are basically just in the DOM. And if you want to pull in something like jQuery or something like that to help you out, you can, but you're not trying to learn this whole new way of thinking about front end design. And so I get it. And so for Laravel's got a templating system with it, so you can write your front ends by serving them as Laravel pages, or you can just, I guess you could just write your API in Laravel if you wanted to, but then at that point I'm sort of wondering, like, why would you want to? I mean, they have a nice ORM with Laravel, and that's something, and but I don't know. It's a good question, DSDMG. It sounds like Sam and I don't have like a clear answer for you on why Laravel would be better, but I would say check it out for sure. Check it out and see how you like Laravel. I haven't been in the Laravel community in a couple years at least, so but it was good when I was there. I like a community that's really open to contributors and really collaborative. And I remember feeling a little bit of a brick wall there with Laravel in some cases. Not even Laravel, but like some of the plugins and sort of the ecosystem around Laravel was. I felt there was a little like gatekeeping going on that I didn't enjoy. I remember that. But I made and published plenty of my own Laravel extensions too. So there are all kinds of people out there. So let's see, what else do we have in the chat here? Nick's a SvelteKit fan. Yeah, me too, Nick. Daniel's asking about Nuxt. So not Next, but Nuxt. Have you messed with that? I don't know anything about it.
Yes, I checked out Nuxt like ages ago. I can't remember how long ago, but my opinion on it was that it was very similar to Next.js at the time. And I just thought, oh, well, this is this is the Vue equivalent of Next.js. So like,
Mm-hmm.
that's what it is. I don't know how it's developed since then, whether it's become better than Next.js. Next.js's problems have come from what I think they've tried to solve, which is like doing incremental HTTP requests to transmit data between the front end and the server side code, between the front end and the back end. And I think like by bringing in App Router, which does all of that magic, it ends up not being very magic when you've got something to debug. So I'm not sure whether Nux adopts that same browser magic, but I really hope that they don't, because that's where Next.js just sucks. And anyone who's built with App Router would say the same thing. Like, don't do it. Like, just build with pages. Even though App Router is what Vercel says is the recommended, for the love of God, build with pages. You know.
App Router. App Router introduces a new model for building applications. Okay, so we got a new model again. Yeah, exactly. I mean, this stuff just never ends. There's always a new paradigm. It's hard to keep up with all this stuff. Nuxt has like 56,000 stars on GitHub, and Next has 130,000 stars. Yeah, I don't know. Like I've heard some people swear by Vue. I have used Vue, and it didn't really click with me or the way I think about like data flow and app design. So, I didn't really ever get that much into Vue. But if you like Vue, then Nuxt would probably be a worthwhile investigation for you, because it'll give you file-based routing and some of those other goodies that Next brings to React. So, I mean, that's how I understand Nuxt. So you've got Nuxt for Vue, Next for React, and SvelteKit for Svelte. And they all kind of attempt the same type of thing, don't they?
Yeah, but it goes back to what we were saying about like the frameworks which are out there. They're all very samey and all very similar, and they're all abstractions on I guess simplicity for the sake of saving time. So ultimately, when you boil down a web page, it's just HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, but it's how you do that, and also the application that you're building, which influences your tech decisions. And I tried all of them, and I tried Angular as well, and everyone hated Angular, and I understand why people hate Angular, because if you try and break away from the Angular way of doing things, you're going to find yourself in a lot of pain. But I think the good thing about Angular was that it was really opinionated in the way that it asks you to sort of build components and things like that. So code bases largely look the same. So if you're a consultant, like I was, jumping into an Angular project, it's like, oh, this is an Angular project. I know it's an Angular project just by looking at the files. Whereas like jumping into a React project, it's like, wow, this code base looks completely different to any other React project I've ever worked on. And that happens because React's so flexible. You can just throw it in anything, and it can be a complete mess, and often is a complete mess on even code bases with millions and millions of users. It's a complete mess. But I think that for something like Vue I found very simple to work with, but Vue for me didn't have the community around it. And I also want to be on technology, like using a popular technology is really important to me, because I feel like the more it's that thing of getting in the way of me building. If I have to go and reinvent the wheel for everything, then that for me is not very rewarding. I would rather be working on innovative or new things in a popular technology rather than having to sort of reinvent the wheels on a technology that nobody cares about. Because I just want to get on with building apps like most people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and my pursuit, my app building pursuit has led me into this. I mean, we talked about it last time, but this years long rabbit hole of tooling and things like that. So there's definitely some wisdom in finding the appropriate abstraction level and not venturing into that abstraction. Just settle yourself on a certain framework or something. And that's what, my mood today is I want to go try convex again, because maybe I could just get rid of my whole back end headache altogether, because it's becoming an all-consuming thing for me now, and I'm never getting back to my apps that I really want, because I keep having to go back down into the tooling and refine things and stuff like that, and it's fun and everything, but in terms of shipping apps, I'm not sure that I'm approaching it the best way that I can for me. Nick says he doesn't like Laravel because it feels bloated, and he likes something called fat-free framework when he's working in PHP. And yeah, this looks something like actually this looks like PocketBased hooks. You just have like a router, and you just pass a function to the router, and it responds on that route. Or kind of a little bit Express.js-y kind of flavor to this fat-free framework. Nick, I'm noticing a trend with you, man, that when I land on the websites of the tools you use, my instinct is to immediately reject it. I'm looking at fat-free framework here, and I just I glance at this website and I just say, nope, I'm not gonna. There's something about it that just I don't want this. It's really an interesting experience, because we come from such different walks of life, and so I'm really interested to get Nick on the stream too, because he's obviously got a perspective that's different than mine, and I want to kind of learn more about it and everything.
I definitely will tune in for that one, please. Let me know when that happens. And I kind of am curious about the other things that have been recommended now.
Well, I'm trying to remember the other one that he said. Nick, what was that other one that I went there, and within 1 second of seeing it, I was like, no, I'm not using it. I can't remember what it was. It's on one of the other streams, but yeah, it cracks me up though, because Nick's a good guy. I can already tell, because I've been chatting with him on the streams a lot, and I also see his posts on X. And he's clearly what do they say on those those dating reality shows? He's here for the right reasons. Yeah, Nick's here for the right reasons. So it'll be a fun stream when we finally get to it. But yeah, there's so many interesting little frameworks out here and everything, and right, and that's if you want to stay kind of in the web stack. But if you want to make like a web game, like I'm wanting to make some web-based games, or like PWA games, and then you get into like all the canvas-based frameworks. It's not even HTML anymore. You're down in like WebGL and Canvas and Web 3D stuff, which I dabbled in a lot of that a few years ago. Like virtual reality, I don't know if you know, but you can do VR in web.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, now I'm wondering if like some sort of web game platform as my front end and convex as the back end, maybe that's the winning combo that'll keep me out of trouble and allow me to just stay focused on shipping apps, because that's where I really fall short. Yeah, Nick can't remember what it is either. That cracks me up, man. Yeah. So okay. So Sam, in terms of like I'm kind of curious about your approach to channel building. Like, are you getting all into the like what do they call it? Like creator. Oh man, what they have a name for it, but it's like all the creators that are saying like how do you make the best video? How do you make the best thumbnail? Creator theory. That's what I'm trying to remember. Yeah. Are you getting into creator theory, or are you just kind of doing your own thing?
I mean, the thing for me is like creator theory is really important, and I'm not gonna diss anyone who's doing that, like who's trying to maximize their views and everything like that. But I also want to create content that I actually enjoy for me as well, and I enjoy talking about. So I could go out and find out what's everyone want to talk about, what's going to be the most popular trends and things to jump on.
Yeah,
But
I get that.
I wouldn't. I mean, I feel like even with PocketBased, the reason I chose PocketBased is because it's free. I mean free as in like the sense of free speech. Like it's really free, and I want to be the same with with whatever I do. I want it to be me. I want it to be authentic and not have to worry about like tailoring every single aspect. But that being said, I also want what I'm saying to be presented in the truest form. So that's why I'm I've got this thing which I'm trying to do, which is like 1% better each video. I'm not getting 1% better each video, but like I this is my thing that I'm attaining to. Like how can I try and improve my videos and make them convey better what I'm trying to actually say. And most of that's just me tweaking my process every time that I jump into a video. So like I did that PocketBased getting started with PocketBased in 2025 video, and I know you're doing some content on doing like a PocketBased roadmap. But that video, I changed my entire setup because I went to Malaysia last month and I bought like a bunch of stuff to help me with my content creation. So I bought these wireless mics here, and I bought like a light stand set up so that I've got like good lighting. And these are the little ways that I'm changing the channel and trying to get better. So I think in terms of like creator theory and trying to build videos which are super approachable. I mean, the only thing that I've really seen was like I saw like a video on YouTube talking about like how Mr. Beast does his like thumbnails, and he's sort of like he's like a wizard. He's like Sherlock Holmes or whatever, like seeing all of the numbers and things like that, and figuring out what's going to be the right angles, what's going to be what the viewer wants to see. But for me, that's not necessarily the way I wanted to do it. But I did try and emulate sort of his thumbnails by having me on the thumbnail to begin with, because I read that people like to see a face. So that one, 50 YouTubers right for 1 million. I saw that's a typical thumbnail. That's got him in the left hand side. And you'll notice actually there's a trend on his videos. He's always on the left hand side, whereas before he was on the right hand side. And one thing which I do with my YouTube videos is I try and tweak the thumbnails and watch for trends. So one thing which I did is I set my border for my YouTube videos to red, and I noticed that was a problem for a viewer, because he's like, I don't know whether I've watched your videos or not because your border's red. So I changed them all back to the pink border, which I started with, and that helped.
Yeah,
I suppose.
I see that. Yeah, because like here, yeah, like here's a little red progress bar on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then there are creators, if you want to like call him a creator, but like Joe Rogan. He doesn't seem to follow any of these rules, you know, and I mean, even to the extent of if guests try to like drop a link or like, you know, here's my Instagram handle or something like that, he'll say, don't worry about it. They'll find you if they care. And, you know, and like, he just doesn't seem to, you know, pander, like saying, oh, you know, don't forget to like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. And there's sort of a refreshing aspect to that too. I think a lot of different approaches can work if they feel authentic to you. Maybe that's the most important thing. Maybe that's what comes through on all of these creators is that they're doing something that makes sense to them. And you know, I kind of believe that Mr. Beast probably does actually want to watch his own videos. I don't think I've ever seen a Mr. Beast video. You know, because I look at those thumbnails and I just immediately say like, no, I don't really care what this is about. But I know a lot of people do, but maybe most importantly, Mr. Beast cares what it's about and he wants to see. Yeah. And so he's creating stuff he wants to see. And maybe that's kind of the guiding principle. It sounds like that's what you're doing with your channel, right? You're fundamentally creating things you want to see.
I think like, have you ever seen the movie Surf's Up?
I don't think I have.
Okay, you gotta check this one out. I don't know. It's like it was like a big part of my family growing up, and
this
like,
penguin one
in this movie, yeah, this penguin one.
Okay.
Anyways, in this movie, right? There's this old surf legend. He you know, he rode the biggest waves, but he ends up basically, I think he just gets scared on top of this massive wave and just crashes, and it looks like he's died. But anyways, the main protagonist finds this guy later on, and he's like, he sees that this guy's faked his own death, and so he rediscovers this guy. He's faked his own death. This surf legend has faked his own death, and he's like, dude, why are you hiding who you are? You're a surf legend. And you know, he just said, you know, when I was surfing like that, like I was all about the competition, but there was no joy. And like, I feel like I don't want to not have joy. Like he basically just says, no joy, man, no joy. And that like that's not where I want to be at. I want to actually love what I do. And Joe Rogan's a really good example because, like, you know, I suppose 2 years back I was in this like grind set mentality where I'm like, gotta grind, gotta make all of these apps, I gotta, you know, I gotta make money, gotta build my business, all this sort of stuff, and like just working so hard but so unhappy, like, and I think that, yeah, just search for happiness in what you're doing, you know, like, and I think that's where I'm at with my YouTube. Like, maybe it doesn't grow, maybe it grows. Like, at the end of the day, like, even jumping on this stream, like, I'm like, this is awesome. I've never done a stream before. You know, it's just like, it's something cool. And that's my approach to it. And I hope it pays off, but you know, you can't live your life waiting for a payoff. You've got to actually enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, in the wise words of Grok, let the money chase you. That's what Grok told me this morning.
Wow,
pretty deep.
So profound. Damn. What? Out of curiosity, what was the idea?
Well, you know, I was telling Grok, I said, look, I'm in an existential situation here. I have some software development skills. I have some music creation skills. I love jujitsu, and I need to have I have financial goals, you know, and I want to like have some way of putting this all together. Or it doesn't have to all be together, but you know, like, this is kind of who I am, and what do I do with this treasure called life? And and we talked a lot. We had like a long conversation, and at some point in there, Grok was saying basically what just what you were saying, which is, well, at first Grok was like, oh, you can build this business and that one, and to have this, have like a multi-million-dollar exit and things like that. And I said, yeah, but I really want to connect with people. I want something real. That's important to me. I want to connect with those end users. That's how I'm going to feel like I really won life. Not necessarily money. I mean, yes, money, but not as an end goal. And then Grok was like, I understand. Yes, you want to do something meaningful and to have some value generated and some wealth result from that. But you don't want to just chase the wealth. You want the wealth to chase you. And I was like, yeah, that's it right there.
You got it.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah, it was a great conversation, and I am inspired to break out of the kind of the rut that I was in, because another sort of stressor I've been feeling about the channel I've been working on is aside from you, Sam, I don't watch dev channels at all. I don't learn from videos in general. So me making a dev channel doesn't make much sense, because I'm not really creating something that I necessarily know anything about consuming, whereas, your channel to me comes across, much more as somebody who actually wants to see this kind of content. And, and that's really, I think that taught me something, because here I'm making a little dev channel, and you're over there with one that's a little farther along, and so I go over and look at your stuff for inspiration and check out what you're doing, and I kind of realized, like, here's a guy who like really enjoys making this channel, and I don't know if I enjoy making a dev channel. What kind of channel do I want to make? And I think I'd feel much more at home with a channel about the apps that I'm making, and inviting people to participate in trying out those apps, play testing the apps, or having a little live stream session where we're all playing the app together, or doing that kind of thing. Seems like a channel where I might actually watch a channel like that. Like if there were some developer out there who was like, I make apps and I play test them on my channel, and we play test it on the live stream, and we have these events that happen where it's kind of like, it's for entertainment, I guess. Like, it's not so much about like which game are we playing. It's just like, this is what we're doing now collectively as as a group. And then I imagine that might attract some developers and stuff as well, and that would be okay. Like I like collaborating with developers and doing stuff like that. I'm just not sure that building a dev channel is gonna give me that feeling that you're talking about. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey over the last month or so.
I would say that, like, for building anything, you've got to love what you're doing. But I also think that you've got to have an audience at the same time, like, or at least someone that you're going to be building for. Because, and that's what I mean by an audience. You don't necessarily have to be a content creator or something like that, but you have to say, I love this community. I want to build for these people. I really want to help these people with something. And I think that, like, if that's apps, like, you've got to think of who your audience is going to be. Like, are those going to be like people who want to consume content about apps? Like, will those be developers? Like,
yeah. And I never am able to really get clarity on anything beyond what I personally want to see in the world. Like, when I was just just getting out of high school, maybe going into college. What do you guys call that over there? Did you go, you have like university? Do you guys do that or?
Yeah, university is what we would call college is we call TAFE, which is like tertiary something something something. But yeah,
Oh, and university is like the final
yeah.
years of grade school. Hmm.
No. The final years of grade school is like year 10 to 12,
Yeah.
and that's like where we do like what we call an ATAR exam, which is like you've got to pass this to finish school and get access. It's like a university entrance exam. Um, and
Oh, okay.
then
So
after that,
university would be college over here is what we would call, I think, right?
okay,
You're saying after year 12, right? Where
yeah,
you might go on to pursue like a bachelor's degree or something like that. You would do that
yeah.
at
Like,
university?
is UC Berkeley, is Harvard, are those colleges?
They're colleges and they're universities. Yeah, it's
Okay,
the
it's
language is
confusing.
a little ambiguous. Yeah, and then many universities refer to the individual departments within them as colleges. So you'd have the College of
Yeah,
Agriculture, College of English, College of Music, but then also people just call the whole thing college. So
it's so funny. You see those like old movies, the American Mom, I want to go to college. Like it's like what are they talking about?
what is that? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, anyway, so just after year 12, 12th
yeah,
grade, I wanted to be a musician. That was my, sort of my first choice. And um, I spent a long time trying to sound like other people who I admired and who I thought people liked to hear. Like, what do people like to hear? Okay, I'll go sound like that. And that failed dismally. And I didn't know why for years and years until finally I literally one night I was playing somewhere and I hit the bottom where I just felt like, you know what? I'm completely out of ideas. Nothing I have ever tried works. And so I'm going to stop doing all of that. And instead, since nobody's listening anyway, I'm just going to play my song the way I want to hear it. And that's what I'm going to do up here tonight because nobody cares anyway. As soon as I started doing that, somebody actually like turned around and like glanced at me, who's up there right now? That's different. I haven't heard that before. And I was like, wait, what's that? I've never had somebody do that. What is that?
yeah,
And so then I tried it again. Can I get somebody else to look? And can I get somebody? And I remember one night, as I was trying this new experiment, these two women were sitting at the bar talking, and one of them like hushed her friend and like leaned over to to see who was playing up there and what that music was that she was hearing. And I was like, whoa, that's some magic I just figured out. I figured out how to get somebody to stop their conversation and look past their friend to see what was going on. And
yeah,
that all came from making music that I personally wanted to hear. And
yeah,
so that's all I've ever really figured out how to do. I don't know what other people want. I didn't know with Pocket Host either. It's like, well, okay, I'm using PocketBased. I don't want to set it up over and over again, so I'm going to make this little tool. I just want it,
I loved it. Like,
Yeah.
but I feel like also I think about marketing differently these days. Like people, if your product's good, people need to hear about it. Like I feel like it's just the same thing for Pocket Host. Anyone who's building with PocketBased right now needs to use Pocket Host. That's what I think. Like I think that Pocket Host is the easiest way to iterate with PocketBased, and everyone should be using it. And I think that's what I feel is the difference between like being authentic with your marketing. Like when you were playing that authentic music, people needed to hear that because it was authentically you. But in a similar sense, I feel like with Pocket Host, I've kind of lost my train of thought, but essentially, I think that with Pocket Host, people have got to get value out of what you're doing. So if that's a new sound, that's valuable.
Yeah.
If it's being able to iterate quickly with Pocket Base, that's valuable. But like I think that it's it's not also reasonable to expect that people are just going to listen to you because it is inherently of itself valuable. You've got to find a way to put, like, that's what I was talking about with my idea of audience building is, how can I make, because I know people need to hear what I'm talking about because these are issues that I've struggled with myself. But the idea is, how do I communicate effectively what I'm trying to say to people? I mean, like on stream, like this is like super raw. So even as I'm explaining things to you, I'm not really communicating as effectively as I could in a video form.
Oh, sure,
Um,
sure.
but but that also helps build trust with people because people are like, oh, Sam screws up, like it's not he's not exactly like how he is on his videos. And I feel like that's where someone like Joe Rogan, like, people look at Joe Rogan and they're like, that guy's authentic, like that guy is himself. And it's like, well, yeah, like it's really hard when you're just chatting with people to be anything other than yourself, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, so what approaches have you found for bridging the gap between something you think is valuable, something you want to see in the world, and
Hmm.
connecting with other people who might want that too?
It's really hard because I think that what I think is valuable in the world is not the same things which other people think are valuable. So what I've found for me, um, is that I've got a list of things that I want to do for me. So one of those things is I want to write a book, I want to release an album, and I want to release a video game. Those are the three things that I want to do. The rest of them, I think that it's really, I would rather build something with someone where they've already seen that there's value. So a lot of the work that I'm doing now, I'm doing as consulting with a company, or I'm building an app with a friend who's got the vision and got the customers and knows that there's people who need this. And I feel like I really enjoy building with tech, and I really feel like people should know about the cool tech that's out there. So that's where I find that I'm able to bridge the gap between what people want and what I can provide. But I feel like there's lots of different ways to provide value. Like for, uh, but you have to enjoy it, right? Like for instance, whenever I chat with you, Ben, like I just think, man, this is a guy who he knows how to build. This is a guy who, um, is way further along than I am in my developer journey, and like I get a lot of value talking out about developer concepts with you. But like I think that maybe you don't enjoy it, maybe doing educational content on that, but that doesn't mean that you haven't got like something to provide. Like, um, but it's about like, well, do I want to provide that, or is there another way that I can help, or
Mm-hmm.
another thing that I can do? Like, and it's about like providing the value to people, like helping other people, but also making sure that it's something that you're comfortable helping them with.
Right, right. Yeah, that is the dilemma, and it's kind of a time management problem too, because um, you know whatever I spend my time on can't be spent on something else. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what the priorities really are, and I'm finding, well, today anyway, I'm feeling out of balance in terms of how much time I get to put into app development versus tool development. And
Yeah.
adding an educational dev channel on top of it seems to only be taking away from the app development. So having to figure all this out. It's
I think
interesting.
the thing is you're also fully like you don't need educational content like you said. So there's not much point like pursuing something like that. But like for instance for me, right? My channel spurs my learning as well. So like you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned something to me, I go and check that out, and then I do a deep dive into it, and then I'm like, wow, I could do something like I could present a video on this, and then that helps me cement my learnings and make it so that I actually know what I'm talking about because I'm having to put it in a video and I don't want to get it wrong. Um, and so
Yeah.
that helps me learn. But I think maybe for you, like you don't need that as much, and so like it's about finding also how you can use your video format to compound what you know and present it to other people. So like, yeah, I'd love to see some sort of like app showcase of some of the stuff that you're doing. But I don't have the answers for how to do it. All I know is like I'm making it up as I go along.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm figuring it out, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing. So I think that's the biggest thing. You got to enjoy what you're doing.
I think that is what it comes down to. Yeah, you've got to enjoy what you're doing, and I say that to people all the time. Um, I don't know if this expression made it over there, but do what you love and the money will follow. Have you heard that one?
Yeah, yeah, I've heard
Okay.
that one.
I used to think that meant that if you just love something enough, you'll figure out how to make a living with it. I used to think that was what it meant, and it does mean that. But there's another layer to it as well, which is if you don't love what you're doing, it's unlikely that you will persevere through whatever it takes to achieve it. So, ultimately, at least for me, I think love is the answer.
That's so cheesy, man.
But yeah, I'll keep thinking about what I would. Yeah, right now, okay, so right now there's a gap between the content that I'm making and the content I would actually want to see, and I need to somehow bring those together so that I'm making things that I want to see, so that I'm having fun when I'm doing it. I've been having fun just because it's been such a learning curve, just producing video after video. I've been trying to do just one a day, and just kind of update my skills because I haven't done this in a couple years. So that part's been fun, but now I feel like I've reached sort of a point of like comfort with where the technology has moved and things like that, and I'm feeling ready to answer that big question of what do, and it may not even be a YouTube channel, but like what do I want to see out there, and I'm fairly certain the answer is I want to be focused a lot more on making apps, and maybe there's some content that comes out of the app making process in some way. So I don't know.
I think there's a gap for scalability. Like a lot of people want to know like what are the issues that are encountered at scale. Like because I think that a lot of builders when they first start out, like they're like, yeah, I'm going to use PocketBased, but then they don't think about like they may not think about, well, what happens if you need more than 10,000 real-time connections? And it's like, well, PocketBased can still handle that, but like people would love to hear stories about like that sort of stuff. And I think that big developer channels show that as well. Like You see like the Theo.gg, I think, and you see what's that? I think the Primogen. You see
Oh yeah.
those big channels, and a lot of the stuff they talk about are like articles by like senior engineers and lead devs on sort of the issues they encounter at scale. And I mean, the Primogen himself, he works um, with Netflix, so like the stuff that he's covering is like, these are the problems we encounter at scale. Um, like there's a lot of things out there where I think that there's it, at least for me, I love reading about like the issues encountered in building large scale applications. Like I read an article the other day from Blue Sky, the Blue Sky dev team, and they were
Mm.
talking about like how they have issues with the sharding of their databases. And like for me, like I've never dealt with sharding of databases, and like that's not been a problem I've encountered because I haven't had apps which scale to millions of users, but they've definitely got that problem. And like encountering how they solved those issues and how they've structured things is like interesting. And I'd love to hear more content about Pocket Host, because Pocket Host for me is like, wow, like this is a massive PocketBased app that's being distributed now. Like there's all of the all of that stuff is really interesting. And like I feel like you're pretty passionate about Pocket Host, and it'd be cool to see more content about how
Mm.
that works under the hood as well. Like that's the content I'd like to see. I don't know whether that's what the audience wants to see, but like for me, like, huh. Like, and there's questions about scalability. Like, I mean, we go to the Reddit, and like every other week there's a question: can this scale to like 1 million users? Like, like these are the questions we get in Reddit. Like, I'd love to just have like a video there where it's like, well, yes, but no. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
more depth.
Yeah. That's interesting. So you'd like to hear more about what's going on specifically with Pocket Host.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Like, I
Interesting.
think Pocket Host is also a very good platform, and I think it's something that like I know you may want to build apps, but Pocket Host I think is a very valuable app. And just out of curiosity, by the way, like how do you manage all of your time? Because like I message you at all times of the day, and you're just like, it seems like you're always on Discord, and I'm just like, how does this guy do it? Like when I'm like coding or focused, like I'm just like, no messages, no nothing. Like how are you so focused? Like even though being distracted on the Discord.
Hmm. That's a good question. How do I how do I get everything done? Um, hmm. Well, I don't have too many idle moments. If I'm not hands on doing something, I'm thinking about you know the next problem or whatever. Uh, I think it might have been Nick. Thought I fell asleep on the live stream, which I kind of did. It was sort of a liminal state of some kind. Um, I go into these like, well, like when I was young, I would just take naps. I would fall asleep and wake up with some kind of answer. But now it's more like a meditative state. So I spend I spend quite a bit of time just kind of in that state where I'm just letting the problem work on itself somehow. It doesn't really even feel like I'm thinking about it really. I'm just kind of, I don't know, it's like some Rubik's cube is going on in my head. Something's being solved and then it'll just kind of show it to me. Here you go. This is how to do it.
Just
And then I'll
moves to
go,
another thread
yeah,
in your
and
brain.
I'll go try that, and that'll sort of reveal the next layer of whatever's going on. So
Yeah.
I think part of the efficiency comes from I try to avoid spending time just like coding is the least productive part of the process for me. And it's the part where if you get stuck coding too long, for me anyway, it almost certainly indicates that I'm taking the wrong approach, or I don't understand what's going on, or like if I'm adding code instead of removing code, that's usually suspicious to me. So I try to err on the side of letting that thought process, whatever it is, like letting things percolate until I have real clarity. Sometimes I'll sit down and like I'll write some like experimental piece of code just to see how it behaves or whatever. But a lot of it happens in my head, and then I sit down and I like copy down whatever's in my head. So that tends to be a lot more efficient. I didn't used to work that way. I used to just, be on the keyboard for a long time, and I noticed that I was throwing away most of that stuff. So now I try to throw it away in my head before I sit down and write it. So I'd say that's probably one of the biggest things that I do to conserve time. Yeah, I don't know. I have plenty of stuff going on because I've got a couple kids and I spend time with them all the time. Have a life partner who lives down the hall, spend time with her a lot. She's not Brazilian though, so I mean, you got me there. You got me there. But yeah, let's see. So I don't know. I stay pretty busy with like family stuff too. And when I'm out doing family stuff, like part of me is over here like working on, the next thing. I'm sure that it happens, for a lot of people that way, where, when they're just kind of out in the world, they're sort of in the back of their minds, they're chewing on that problem, trying to figure out, a new approach. But yeah, I wake up pretty much after anytime I fall asleep, I wake up with a new idea about what to do about, whatever I was working on. And like just today or yesterday with that module resolution problem I was working on, I was about to go fork yet another project and submit yet another pull request for this like upstream stuff that, it's like the tools that make the tools. I find problems up there and I try to go submit, pull requests or whatever to fix that so that it eventually comes downstream to where I first spotted the problem, and then I can move forward. And, I lose a lot of time contributing to other people's projects, I guess, but which I don't really think of as a loss of time. It's not time that I spend on my stuff. But this module resolution thing, after I woke up from a little slumber, I realized, oh, you know what? I think there's a workaround. I think I don't need to actually get into the weeds on this one after all. And so, that saved me hours just by not acting too quickly. So that's probably my biggest change that's made me more productive.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sleep's definitely important. I think I code way better on more sleep than less. Like that's one thing I've changed. Like last year I was sleeping like 6 hours a night. Now I'm sleeping 8. And it's good. It's good for my mental health as well. So
yeah. I know when it's time for me to go to sleep, because I will start feeling very hopeless about everything.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, I remember this means I'm tired. I gotta sleep for a while. And then my sleep cycle is like 3 or 4 hours long. If I'm really lucky, I can get 2 of those in somewhat close to each other. But typically what happens is I'll sleep for 3 or 4 hours, and then I'll wake up. I'll be up for at least a couple hours. And then sometimes I'll go back and sleep another couple hours or something like that. I think it probably only does average about like 4 to 6 hours a day per 24 hours, but it's chopped up. It's rare that I like sleep through the night. And I've just kind of accepted that. Like people have been telling me for years and years, like, oh, you got to get the solid 8 hours of sleep or whatever it is, kind of uninterrupted during the night. And I've felt really like deficient because it hasn't happened. Not since I haven't slept through the night like that since I was a teenager, and it just doesn't work for me. And then I just saw this video a while ago. I don't know if it's true or not, but they were saying back in like medieval times or something, they had a sleep cycle much more similar to mine, where they'd wake up in the middle of the night, maybe even go do some stuff, go work on some stuff, and then go back to bed and wait for the sun to rise. And I was like, yeah, that seems right to me. So yeah,
if it works, it works. Like there's a lot of things I think that we still don't know about sleep, and yeah, I don't know.
It seems to be what works best for me. I'm most productive when I can sleep when I'm tired and be up when I'm not tired. And sometimes life interferes with that because, there are some things that are on a schedule and it's like, oh, I have to get up even though I'd rather sleep. I need to get up and do this. And, that throws me off and stuff. But yeah, definitely, like, I pay a lot more attention to just my body and what it's telling me and stuff. I never used to work for that. Yeah, Daniel says biphasic sleep. Yeah, absolutely, Daniel. That's what I'm talking about. Biphasic, that's me. Or monophasic in some cases, like just sometimes I don't get that second sleep cycle, Daniel. But anyway, yeah. So looking ahead for you, you're planning to keep building your channel by exploring the topics that are interesting and that matter to you, and then sharing what you learn with everyone else. And I think that's an awesome approach. It seems to already be working for you. Like, your name's getting out there.
Yeah, I honestly, I can just, I don't know why, to be honest with you. I don't know why, but I'm happy that it's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're almost going to hit 1,000 subscribers pretty soon. Yeah. Like probably in the next, I bet within 30 days. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it should be 30 days. It really depends on the success of this video and the next video. And my next video, which I'm going to be releasing, is one which I actually wanted to discuss with you on the stream. It's the only thing I wanted to discuss with you, and that was on PocketBased extensions. Like,
oh yeah. How'd we get this far?
You've been building like a madman in extensions. Now, one of the things which I personally find not ideal is the fact that extensions don't work like distributed edge functions. Like, they're not region based. Like, if you're running an extension, you're running it in one place. It's not, it can't be distributed. Like, have you got any solutions to that? What are your thoughts on that? Like, is that a deal breaker? What do you think?
Well, so you're talking about PocketBased extensions, and are you differentiating between JavaScript and Go extensions, or just any kind of
JavaScript extensions? Yeah.
Okay.
Just Java.
Well, I mean, so fundamentally, the issue with PocketBased is that it really isn't horizontally scalable, and that means that any of the extensions that run in it are also not going to scale horizontally. And there are a lot of reasons for that. Have you kind of have you stepped into this at all? Like why PocketBase isn't horizontally scalable?
Yeah. I've read bits and pieces, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on it.
Okay. Well, so we know that Terso has solved the horizontal SQLite scalability problem, right?
Mm.
So we can have horizontally scalable SQLite installations where each edge has its own SQLite database right there on the edge with it, and they all stay in sync somehow. At least that's the claim that Terso makes. And so then people think like, well, PocketBase runs on SQLite, so let's just put a bunch of PocketBase instances out on the edges as well. Use Terso to synchronize the SQLite database, and we're good to go. And unfortunately, that isn't the case with PocketBase, because PocketBase uses a synthetic event system, meaning it does not listen to SQLite events. It has its own event system that are generated by actions performed in PocketBase code. So when you go to update a model in PocketBase, it fires a model updated event, but that has nothing to do with the underlying SQLite. SQLite does have events you can hook into. Like you can hook into a SQLite event that says like this row changed, or this record was inserted, or this record was deleted, or this table schema changed. Like SQLite has events for that, but PocketBase doesn't listen for any of those. So what that means is even if Terso changed the data in SQLite, PocketBase wouldn't know about it. And that breaks a lot of features. I mean, it would know the next time it queried the data, but in terms of the event system in PocketBase, you could change the underlying data in the SQLite database, and it would not notify PocketBase that the data had changed at all. So that means any hooks that you have into events like that aren't going to work. So that's one issue. Another issue is typically even in any kind of horizontally scaled system, you need some source of truth. Like if every edge is running a PocketBase instance and you go change the schema, you log into the admin of one of the PocketBase instances and you change the schema, is the expectation that that's going to propagate to all the others? And if somebody changed the schema in a different one in a way that was incompatible with your change, then what? How do you resolve that conflict? So usually what you have is an origin that's a single source of truth, and everything that gets written to the database gets written to the origin. And then you have these edge caches, which are mirrors of the origin, and anybody connecting to the edge, it'll query the edge's copy of the data instead of the origin's copy. That's a type of horizontal scaling that is maybe a little bit closer to something that could work with PocketBase, but you still have the problem of like real-time connections. Real-time connections are heavily dependent on that synthetic event system, and if you make a real-time connection to an edge instance of PocketBase, and somebody else is making a connection to a different edge instance of PocketBase, and the data changes, it's going to be really hard to make both of those edges notify their users. So I don't think PocketBase is anywhere near scaling horizontally unless you want to give up virtually every feature that makes it cool. But what you can do, and what I've done, like in the case of PocketHost, is you can use the real-time system where the edges all make real-time connections to the origin, and then they keep a mirror of the data locally on the edge. So if anyone asks for it, they can stream it out from there. So you could potentially make some sort of scaling solution. Like if you did run out of real-time connections, let's say 10,000 people connecting to the origin wasn't working anymore, and you wanted to spread that out, you could probably set up some mirrors like that. I think that would be custom code, though. It wouldn't. PocketBased doesn't have the ability to mirror itself. You'd have to have some custom code like what I did. So Nick says he sees the issues as fairly solvable. Nick, send a pull request in, man. Get with Ghani and send a pull request. If you can solve this, you'll be a hero for the whole community. I'm not as convinced that these problems can be easily solved, especially since Ghani has no interest in it. But that's more of a political problem. I'm talking about like technical feasibility. There are a lot of roadblocks to it. But hey, if you see something I don't, Nick, go for it. Yeah, see, here you go again with your bolting on things. Nick says adopt Shoutcast DNAS model for relays. Yeah, I don't think, and this is what's up on the screen right now. Traffic Labs here, the cloud native application proxy. I don't believe stuff like this works, Nick. So, setting up relays and proxies and like bolting on these external applications where your data just flows through perfectly and magically somehow, I don't believe it. I've never seen it work. So that's where I'm at on all of that. And that does kind of bring us back full circle to Nick remembered the name of the website that I was making fun of last time. It's called Traffic Labs, and it says Cloud Native Application Proxy. I don't even know what that means. Cloud Native Application Proxy. That sounds like corporate speak for something I don't need. But I'm just being hard on you, Nick. Seriously, Nick, if you see an approach to this, go for it. It's not an area where I would invest my time because I've seen it fail so many times, but that could just mean that I don't have the right, mind to comprehend how to make it work. And if you see a way, I think that would be so helpful for the community.
That being said, what's the point in building with PocketBased when you're going to be encountering these massive issues at scale for you? Because I know my personal reasons why, but why do we build with PocketBased if we encounter these issues with horizontal scaling?
I think they're mostly encountered in the imagination. I don't actually know that many people. I don't know anybody actually who has encountered an actual scaling problem with PocketBased. Even the guy whose app went viral and he was getting hit millions of times a day. This kid in India, did you hear about this one? This was on PocketHost.
You told me this last time.
Yeah. Even that guy, PocketBased wasn't the bottleneck really. It could have been that the real-time system did bog down there. But in PocketBased's defense, any other system would have the same issue where you'd have to figure out some way to scale it out past what a single server was capable of doing. And I think people imagine that other solutions somehow just magically scale, and they don't either, So it's scaling is not easy, and in most cases, it's not even necessary. Because we were able to solve the problems without scaling PocketBased or PocketHost. It was just a matter of application architecture, and I think that's well over 90%, maybe even 95% of everybody's apps and use cases. They are not going to bottleneck on PocketBased in the first place. The one case I see where maybe scaling makes sense, and we've seen this with PocketHost, is if people connect to an edge server nearest to them, and then I route their request through a VPN over to our origin server that sits in San Francisco, that ends up being faster than public network routing. In other words, if they try to access the origin in San Francisco directly from wherever they are in the world, it's way slower than accessing a fly.io edge near them and proxying the data through the VPN. Because Fly has these VPNs set up between all of their regions, and the traffic routes are so optimized somehow. I mean, I've cut the latency in half just by having those edges sit out there, and they do nothing but proxy the traffic through the Fly edge over to San Francisco over the VPN. That's all that
impressive.
That's all that it's doing right now. And I even turned it off for a couple days because it costs like a couple $100 a month in extra bandwidth to run it. So I was like, well, I wonder if the storm has passed. And I turned it off for a couple days, and people started coming to Discord saying like, hey man, why is it so slow lately? And then I was like, hold on, hold my beer. Let me turn this back on, and turned it on, and they tested again. This was like a live test we did on Discord. They test again. They're just like, holy shit, it's back. So I know that it works. I know it works for people, who aren't close to San Francisco. And so that's a type of scaling that you could do with like anybody running a PocketBased instance somewhere. It doesn't even have to be on PocketHost. You could set up your own edge servers that proxy all the traffic through a VPN, and that would cut down on a lot of the latency people experience. But it still wouldn't help with, like, I mean, if you have 100,000 users trying to make real-time connections to PocketBased, it's probably not going to work.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of people get unstuck, I would say, but I think also people don't necessarily make the distinction between real-time users and users.
Right.
So they're like, 10,000 connections, it's not recommended. It's like real-time connections, real-time, not just users in a database who make calls. Like,
yeah, that's true. I think people do get a little confused by the terminology around that because, they're not really sure what a real-time user is. But yeah, I mean, if you have 10,000 people concurrently using your application, I mean, that's an amazing problem to have. I don't even have that on PocketHost. And we're hosting a lot of stuff, like, thousands of requests per second, but still not 10,000 concurrent users. And that's not just, the PocketHost users, that's their users connecting, like all of their users combined, connecting to all of the instances combined, still not 10,000 concurrent, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a much bigger number than people imagine. So my answer to scalability is wait for a problem. That's my first piece of advice. But then, past that, like if you really, really are wondering if PocketBased can scale horizontally, the answer is I don't think so. But Nick is gonna save us all and make a solution for it. And I'm waiting, Nick. Now you threw down the gauntlet when you said, I see the issues as fairly solvable. Okay. I hope you accept that challenge, because I see them as fundamentally unsolvable in PocketBased. So extensions, JS extensions are, I think Ghani had in mind for those that they'd be for pretty lightweight tasks, just like quick in and out type of stuff. Not like long running processes or computational stuff, like Goja's not really built for that. Goja is a pretty slow JavaScript interpreter compared to like Chromium or, what's the other one that's out there? I think Bun uses Chromium underneath. But anyway, and WebKit might be a fork of Chromium or something like that. But that is sort of the most powerful JavaScript interpreter on the planet, and it actually translates the JavaScript into machine instructions.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I mean, they are doing some really aggressive optimizations that Goja can't touch. Goja translates JavaScript into a syntax tree and bytecode that can be evaluated much more quickly than reinterpreting the actual script over and over again. It does that optimization, but it's still a virtual machine running in Go, and it doesn't do any JIT compiling where it's translating anything into machine instructions. In fact, I don't even know if Go is capable of executing machine instructions as part of its runtime. I don't even think it allows that. Like with C, you can drop into assembly language and do platform specific stuff, or like with graphics boards, like something from NVIDIA, like a GPU, you can program in CUDA, which is basically like an assembly language-ish kind of thing for GPUs. But then even that's interpreted. There's a CUDA virtual machine basically that translates the CUDA instructions into actual GPU machine instructions for the specific chipset that's running or whatever. And those guys over at what's the Chinese AI deep something, deep R1? DeepSeek R1. Yeah, so they in order to make their stuff as efficient as it is, they actually bypassed the whole CUDA layer, and they are writing machine instructions straight to the GPU, which means that they can, achieve optimizations that just aren't possible in a virtual machine. So that's where we're at with Goja is like, it's a virtual machine, and there's some stuff that you're just not going to be able to do unless you drop down to actual machine instructions, and it doesn't do that, and I don't think it has any plan to do that. So that means that the JavaScript runtime in PocketBased is probably an order of magnitude slower than, say, Node.js, and Node.js is in some cases can be an order of magnitude slower than Go. So it's an environment where you're not going to do computationally efficient stuff, but a lot of web applications is just sitting around waiting for I/O anyway. It's not computationally intensive. So I happen to think that you can build entire applications in the JavaScript runtime for PocketBased. Ghani doesn't like that, but it's true. You can build a very performant application that way. But yeah, in terms of scaling it out, that's a little more difficult. Like you'd need to, I don't know, you could make the even in JavaScript, you could make the instances call out to each other, and maybe that could be some kind. You could maybe build a scaling layer of your own on top of PocketBased, as long as it was like very bespoke and specific to your app. You could probably build a scaling layer.
Okay, but you could. Yeah, I think like in terms of maybe the way that you can still keep PocketBased as a thing is you like you said with the Terso way of doing things with SQL, like you can just you can still use the PocketBased database and then just skip using extensions, right? Like, so that's like an option you have where you can just build using, I don't know whether Terso's got edge functions or something like that, but you could use something like that in order to be able to listen to changes in the database, right?
To listen for changes. Say more about that. Listen for changes.
Yeah, so because you talked like earlier, like the scalability problem, like the the scalability problem of Pocket Base is the fact that it can't listen into it can't listen into changes that would be made in a distributed, horizontally scaled libsql
Right,
sort of way of doing
right.
this. But
Yeah, yeah.
you can
So,
still, yeah, you get it?
well, I think so. So you're saying could you build something that did listen to the SQLite events and respond to them?
Could you just use, like, I'm not sure whether Terso has like a edge function which like listen hooks in and listens to SQL changes anyways, so you could just use that as a drop-in replacement um for JS extensions which listen to SQLite.
Oh yeah, I don't know how the Terso library works. I'm not sure. I imagine what it does is intercept the operations that you perform on SQLite, and then it does its own
Yeah.
thing with them, like distribute them out or broadcast them out or whatever. Um, so yeah, I don't know how they're accomplishing that, but yeah. However, here's what. Okay, without changing anything in PocketBase, what you could do now is use the Terso data provider and
Mm,
have your distributed SQLite database and read from any edge and write to, well, you might be able to write to any edge as well. Basically, you would turn PocketBase into a glorified REST API over SQLite, where, yeah, you're just using the PocketBase REST API, but you're not using any of the event system.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like there must be like that must be the only alternative if you're wanting to still sort of have that horizontal scaling, is to just use the front end of like, you don't even need to use the you can just use the front end to manage it. You can use the front end as the what do they call it? Not CRM, like just the CSM, the content system, to be able to for
Oh,
a user to be able to jump in.
yeah, CMS. Is that what you're?
CMS, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. So, man, but if you're not using anything from the Pocket-based event system, uh, you would have to trust that if something could be successfully written to one instance, that it would be valid and written everywhere. Yeah, like I think you could and this is, well, and we're also assuming that PocketBase doesn't do any in-memory caching of the SQLite data. I'm not sure if
Uh,
that's true. If it were true, you could probably disable that cache so that it checks the database every time. But I think PocketBase assumes that it's the only process accessing the database. So, but I don't know if Ghani does any caching around that. That would be another consideration.
yeah, because I think that's it's definitely something to consider.
Uh, I think it would be worthwhile for somebody to put together some kind of Pocket-based cluster that used just the most basic features of Pocket-based to see if they worked.
Yeah,
So that would be like turning off cron, turning off any reliance on any like data-based events. So like, let's see here. You could do this. You could do this for your channel. All right. So these event hooks, app hooks would probably work fine. Well, no, on settings reload would not work because it wouldn't know if the settings got changed. Backups, I would probably not try to do backups except from like one instance that was, dedicated to doing that. But I guess, I don't know. I guess the edges could do their own backups. It's just you wouldn't want to restore. You'd want to be careful about how you restored. Mail hooks would work fine. You could send outgoing mail from all of your edges. You could do password recovery, stuff like that. Real-time hooks would be completely broken unless there were some way where you only needed real-time events on a per edge basis, but real-time events across edges would be completely broken. On record, enrich, and validate, those would be partially broken. And what people may not know is that these events are also used internally in PocketBase's internal code. It's relying on, getting these enrichment and validation events firing for some of the data processing that it does, and those won't fire if your data was updated from a different edge. So that could be problematic, like at a core code level. All of these events, create, execute, all of these are not going to work across edges. Model update hooks won't work across edges. Model delete hooks won't work across edges. All of the collection hooks won't work across edges. Request hooks won't work across edges. But I'm not sure that they need to either.
Yeah.
Batch updates, those would not work across edges. Yeah, there's a lot in here that's like super iffy, super dicey as to whether you'd have to put a lot of thought into, how you were relying on these. And my main concern would be how they're used actually internally in PocketBase, and whether PocketBase would be getting all of the events it needs when events happen on different edges. That would be a concern.
But like you mentioned, it's not even really an issue that needs solving.
It's not an issue that needs solving. And I would say if all you really wanted was a REST API in front of SQLite, I think you can accomplish that without PocketBase at all. Yeah. You can put a REST API in front of SQLite pretty easily. They probably are already out there, actually. So if you're not going to get any of the goodies that make PocketBase cool, like real time, then I'm not even sure why you'd care.
Bother. Yeah, why bother?
Yeah. So I don't know. That's where I land on it, but I do encourage people to prove me wrong and make a horizontally scalable PocketBase prototype and show it to everybody, because I think a lot of people would be interested in that. People have been asking for that since day one with Pocket Host. Is like, ooh, yeah, if you could make a scaling option for Pocket Host, that would be a reason for people to not self-host, because
Yeah.
And I agree, but I don't see it as feasible.
Yeah. Well, Nick will solve it.
We're hoping, Nick. We're counting on you. Well, this has been a good chat, man.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about anything else, or are you feeling complete?
I'm feeling complete. I definitely want to come back. So because this was a lot of fun. This is my first stream, and I'm happy with how it turned out. Yeah. Yeah,
awesome. Well, we'll say goodbye to the chat now, and I'm gonna drop us off the stream, but you can hang on for me. Yeah, Nick just laughed. It's all on you, Nick.